I travel for work more than I'd like, and last spring I had a stretch of meetings in a town about 3 hours out. Pretty area, mountains, little downtown, the kind of place people go on purpose. So I did something I thought was smart. I brought my wife along, and instead of a hotel, I booked us a rental house for the week. Cute little place backed up against the trees, a few minutes outside town. Private, quiet. I want to be clear about something before I go on. Nothing in this story broke in. Nothing hid in a closet. What happened was quieter than that, and honestly, I think that's why it still bothers me. The first thing was the welcome basket. There was a basket on the kitchen counter when we arrived. Wine, crackers, a handwritten note. Nice touch, right? Except the note said, "Welcome back. So glad you two chose us again. M." We'd never been there before. I emailed the host that night, kind of joking, like, "Hey, I think we got someone else's note." She replied the next morning, "Sorry, must have mixed up my check-ins." Fine, okay. Hosts juggle multiple properties. I let it go. The second day, my wife stayed behind while I went to my meetings. She's comfortable alone, that's not the issue. But around noon she called me, and her voice had that carefulness in it, the tone she uses when she doesn't want to sound crazy. She said a car had pulled into the driveway that morning, sat there for a few minutes. A man got out, walked up to the porch, and then just stood there. Didn't knock, didn't ring. She watched him through the side of the curtain. She said he looked at the door for a while, then at the windows, and then he took out his phone, typed something, and left. An hour later, the host messaged us. "Hey, just confirming, you're checked in through Friday, right?" Which, yes. We'd booked it months ago. Why was she confirming that on day 2? And who was the man? When I asked, she said it was probably the maintenance guy, and not to worry. I'm going to tell you the thing we found on day 3, because this is where it turned for us. My wife was looking for extra blankets and opened the tall cabinet in the hallway, the one piece of furniture that was locked, except it wasn't fully latched. Inside, there wasn't linen. There were folders, a whole row of them labeled by month, and inside the folders were printouts, booking confirmations, guest names, arrival and departure dates, notes in handwriting down the margins, not about the house, about the people. 2 adults leave every morning by 9. Older couple in bed early. Single woman, week stay, no visitors. The one on top was ours, our names, our dates, and in the margin, in pen, husband gone during the day. I stood in that hallway, reading my own life in a stranger's handwriting, and I felt the temperature of the whole trip change. Because there are 2 ways to read a folder like that. One is a host keeping obsessive notes. Weird, but harmless. The other is that the notes weren't for the host. We decided to leave a day early. I didn't even argue with myself about the money. We packed that evening, and while I was loading the car, a truck slowed down on the road out front. Not stopped, slowed. Enough for the driver to get a long look at us, at the bags, at the open trunk. Then it rolled on. 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed. The host. "Sorry to see you're leaving early. Was everything okay?" We hadn't told her. We hadn't told anyone. There is no version of that message that isn't someone watching the house. Either a camera we never found, or the man in the truck, or a neighbor who reports to her. And every version means the same thing. From the moment we arrived, someone always knew exactly what we were doing. I reported the folders to the platform after we got home. I took pictures. I did that much before we left. They took it very seriously, removed the listing within a week, and told me they couldn't share the outcome of their investigation for privacy reasons. Her privacy. That's a real sentence someone typed to me. Here's what I keep coming back to. Nothing happened to us. Nobody touched us, nobody broke in, and if my wife hadn't gone looking for blankets, we'd have driven home Friday thinking we'd had a lovely week. That's the part that gets me. The system worked exactly the way it was designed to. Guests came, were observed, were cataloged. Leave every morning by 9, no visitors, and left, none the wiser. Filed by month, years of folders. We weren't guests in someone's house. We were entries in someone's collection. And the only thing that made us different from every name in every folder before us is that we found out. A few years back, I took a trip to a beach resort with a girl I was seeing at the time. I'll call her Dana. One of those all-inclusive places on the coast. Nice. Way out of my usual budget. But we'd both had a rough year and figured we'd earned it. The first 2 days were perfect. That matters to the story, actually, because when things started, we were about as relaxed and unguarded as two people can be. Third night, late, we had the pool area to ourselves. There was a hot tub off to the side, tucked behind a wall of plants, with a little waterfall running. We grabbed drinks and got in. We'd been in there maybe 20 minutes when I saw it. Through the plants, on the walkway side, movement. And not walking past movement. Low movement. Someone crouched down on the other side of the greenery, holding still. I stared at the spot, and the spot stared back. I couldn't see a face, just the shape of a person where no person should be, at a height no person stands at. I shouted, "Hey!" and started climbing out. And if you've ever tried to get out of a hot tub fast, you know it takes a few seconds. By the time I got around the plants, there was nobody. Just the empty walkway, and way down at the end of it, for half a second, someone turning a corner. Gone. Dana wanted to laugh it off, and I let her, but the night was dead after that. We toweled off and walked back toward the room, down this path that runs between the buildings and the tree line. And as we passed the dark stretch, the bushes to our right moved. Big movement. Not a bird, not a lizard. Wait. And underneath it, I heard something I still can't properly describe. A low sound. Like a person humming with their mouth closed, except flat. Tuneless. Like someone making a sound just to make it. Dana grabbed my arm, and we went inside and locked everything. The next morning, we told a staff member about it, mostly so it would be on record, honestly. She was polite, said she'd pass it along. And we went down to the beach and tried to have our vacation back. That afternoon, a man came down the sand toward us with a camera. Polo shirt, khaki shorts, dressed like the staff. He smiled and said the resort was taking photos of guests for their social media, and would we like a picture? Sure. We posed. He took 2 shots, thanked us, and walked off. And it was Dana who said it. She was watching him go, and she said, "Why isn't he taking anyone else's?" He wasn't. He walked straight up the beach, past couple after family, and didn't stop once. Then he was gone behind the dunes. And the more I thought about it, the more wrong the details got. His polo was the wrong shade. He had no name tag. And when he'd crouched to frame the picture, he'd been between us and the sun, and I'd looked at his face, and I had this itch that I'd seen the shape of him before. Low, holding still, and couldn't place where. That night, we went to bed early. Our room had a sliding door out to a small patio, screened in, facing the dark side of the property. We liked sleeping with the slider open for the sound of the ocean. I woke up somewhere past midnight, and I lay there in the dark trying to figure out what had woken me. And then it came again, from the patio, a click. A soft, electronic click, and a tiny whir. I know that sound. Everybody knows that sound. It's a camera. I sat up and looked at the screen door, and against the faint outside light there was a silhouette standing on our patio, standing at the screen, facing the bed. I yelled, I don't even remember what, and the silhouette didn't jump, didn't stumble. It just turned, smooth and unhurried, and walked off the edge of the patio into the dark, like it had somewhere to be. Security came. We were moved to a different building that night, and in the morning, the manager sat us down and showed us footage from the property cameras. And there he was. Same build, same polo, walking the grounds at 2 and 3 in the morning, night after night, our whole stay. They tracked him backward through the footage and confirmed the thing I already knew in my stomach. The pictures on the beach, the crouching by the hot tub, the patio. He hadn't photographed a single other guest. Just us. 3 days of us. He was not an employee. Nobody knew how he was getting onto the property. And as far as I know, they never identified him. I followed up twice after we flew home and got apologies both times, and then nothing. Dana and I aren't together anymore. We text once in a while, and it's always about this because we're the only two people who understand the exact weight of it. Somewhere out there is a man with a camera, and on that camera, or on some hard drive by now, there's a folder of 2 strangers on vacation, eating dinner, walking paths, asleep in bed behind a screen door. We never found out what he wanted them for. There's no version I can think of that makes it better. The part that stays with me isn't the patio, though. It's the beach. Because on the beach, in daylight, smiling, he walked right up to us, and we smiled back. We posed. We said, "Thank you." He got his best pictures with our permission. Two years ago, I drove home overnight to surprise my parents. It's a long haul, 9-10 hours, and I like doing the empty roads thing, music on, nobody out there. I'd done the drive a dozen times. This time, somewhere in the middle mountains, the highway signs put me onto a detour. Accident ahead, follow the arrows. So I follow the arrows, and then at some point there stopped being arrows, and it was just me and a 2-lane road in the fog with no service on my phone. I wasn't stranded. I want to be clear about that. The car was fine. I had half a tank. I was just off the map, waiting for the road to spit me back onto the highway. But it was almost 2 in the morning, the fog was thick, and I'd been squinting into it for an hour, and I was getting the head drops, the dangerous kind. I needed coffee or 10 minutes of shut-eye, whichever came first. And then, out of nowhere, there was light in the fog. A town. Small. 1 main street. And at the end of it, a diner with its sign on. Open. At 2 a.m., in the middle of absolutely nowhere, an open diner felt like water in a desert. I didn't even think. I pulled in. There were 4 vehicles out front, all pickups. Inside, it was brighter than it had any right to be, and there were people, maybe 7 or 8, spread between the counter and the booths, which struck me as strange for the hour, but I was too tired to do math on it. I'll tell you the thing I noticed first, though, because it's the thing I'd tell you to notice if it ever happens to you. When I walked in, nobody looked up. Not one person. You know how it is when a stranger walks into a small town place. Everybody clocks you. It's human. Heads turn, someone nods, life goes on. Nobody turned. 8 people, and not one head moved. And somehow that was worse than all of them staring would have been. Like they'd already looked. Like they'd watched me park. I sat at the counter and ordered coffee from a waitress who was friendly in a way that never reached her eyes. And she asked me right away, no small talk first, "Passing through?" I said, "Yeah, detour off the highway, just needed coffee." She said, "Long way from the detour." And I laughed like it was a joke. She didn't laugh. She poured the coffee and walked to the end of the counter, and I watched her in the back mirror say something quiet to a man sitting there, and I watched the man get up and go outside. Through the window, I saw him stop next to my car. He walked around it once, slow, looked in the back seat, looked at my plates. Then he took out his phone and made a call. I want to describe to you what the next 10 minutes felt like, because nothing happened in them, and they were the worst 10 minutes of my life. I drank my coffee. The waitress refilled it without asking. The man came back inside and sat down. And one by one, I started catching them in the mirror, in the window reflections, looking at me. Never when I turned, only in the glass. 8 people taking turns. And then the payphone on the wall rang, an actual wall phone. The waitress answered, listened, said nothing, hung up. And she came down the counter to me, and she smiled with her mouth, and she said, "You'll want to get back to the highway, hun. Road you came in on, straight through. Don't take the left fork. They're expecting the fog to get bad." They're expecting. I've turned that sentence over 1,000 times. Who's they? Expecting for who? I put money on the counter and stood up, and the whole room stood up with me, all of them at once, like a wave, and for 1 second my heart went through the floor. But they weren't coming at me. They were just standing between me and every part of the diner that wasn't the door, politely, terribly, seeing me out. I drove the road, she said, straight through, past the left fork, and I'll be honest, headlights sat in my mirror the entire way. Far back, never closing. 2 sets. They followed me right up until the moment my tires hit the on-ramp and my phone buzzed back to life. And then they swung around and went back the way they came, like they were walking me to the property line. I told my brother about it when I got home, and he did the thing everyone does. Pulled up the map, looking for the town. And this is the part where people stop believing me, so I'll just say it plainly. We couldn't find it. Not by the detour, not off the 2-lane, not anywhere in that stretch. No town, no diner, nothing but green on the map for 40 miles. Now, maps miss things. Little unincorporated places fall through cracks. I know that. That's probably all it is. But sometimes, on long drives, I think about how that diner was lit up like a landing strip at 2 in the morning, in fog you couldn't see 50 feet through. How everyone was awake, how nobody was surprised. Like it wasn't a diner that happened to be open. Like it was a porch light, left on for whatever the fog brings in. In the phone call, in the escort out, and don't take the left fork. I used to think they were threatening me. Now I think that waitress did me the biggest favor of my life. I think the left fork is where they take the ones nobody calls about.